Hardy. You know, I didn't think I was going to get here tonight. Yeah, just the other day, I walked down the street in Turkey Hall, and a woman driver come along, and she plucked right into me. Then she turned around and hollered back, "Look out!" I says, "What for? Are you coming back?" But you know, there's always a lot of gossip in the hometown, like Turkey Hollow, for instance. There's an awful lot of gossip. I seen two ladies the other day, met in Eve Warner's grocery store. Mrs. Kiefer, she seen this other lady, she says, "Hello, Mary, I haven't seen you for I don't know how long. How have you been?" Well, she says, "Not so good." And my daughter Ethel, she ain't so good either. My daughter Ethel has been laid up in bed with arthritis for 3 weeks. Arthritis? She says, "Yeah. 3 weeks she's been laid up with arthritis. And that could be bad." She says, "You know it could be bad." She says, "I know them riders, boys, and that arthur is the worst one of the whole bunch." You think them riders, boys, are bad? You should know that Cherry Himmelreich. Now, there's a fella, he never goes on unless he comes home with a good load. Yes, that's right. And my Uncle Louis was over at their house, quite some time ago, painting on the inside. My Uncle Louis was a painter by trade, and by accident. And he was over painting up on the second floor, and he just had the hallway finished that night, and he was going to come back the next day and paint the kitchen. So he went home, and that night, Cherry Himmelreich come home all loaded up again as usual. And when he got up to the top of the steps, he stumbled and fell, and his hand went right against this wall, you know, with the new paint. And he was trying to straighten it out in the dark, you know. And his wife come out of the room, she says, "Get into bed, you drunken pig, get away here. I'll have Louis fix it the first thing in the morning." So when Uncle Louis come over the next morning, she says, "Louis, where are you going to work today?" He says, "I'm going to work in the kitchen." Well, she says, "Before you go in the kitchen, I want you to come along upstairs with me. I want to show you where my husband put his hand last night." Well, Uncle Louis says, "Mrs. Himmelreich, I'm an old man, and if you don't mind, I'd just as soon have a cold bottle of beer." But Uncle Louis was a good family man. Well, so am I. I'm a good family man, too. Whenever I go away, and I travel a lot, whenever I go away, I always take my wife along. But it don't do me any good. She finds her way home anyhow. The other week, we was out in San Francisco, California, you know. Well, we was. And when we was out there, old Dan Hummel, that's our village undertaker, he called me up. He says, "Schnitzel, your mother-in-law just passed away." He says, "Shall I order burial, embalming, or cremation?" I says, "Order all three and ride away. Don't take no chances." But you know that Dan Hummel, he's no slowpoke. He's quite a businessman. When things get a little bit slack, he goes out and looks for new business. Yeah, he does. He goes out estimating, you know. The other week, he went out estimating, and he met old Mary Hinnos, you know. She's an old maid. And he stopped in. She says, "Well, what brings you here, Daniel?" Well, he says, "I come out to estimate your funeral." And she says, "Don't you think you're kind of early? I ain't even cold yet." Well, he says, "That's the idea. We come out to estimate your funeral ahead of time so that you got something to say about it, not everybody else got their nose stuck in." Well, all right, she says, "It sounds like a good idea. What do you want to know?" Well, he says, "First of all, I want to know what kind of flowers you like so we know what kind to get." Well, she says, "I like carnations. I like, chrysanthemums and, trailing our beauties and forget-me-nots and stuff like that." Well, she says, I think I'll take chrysanthemums. So he wrote them down, you know. And now he says, "What kind of a dress do you want?" Well, she says, "I don't know. What Well, he says, do you want a dress or a nightgown or just a robe? Well, she says, I believe I would like a robe for a change. All right, he marked down the robe. He says, now comes the coffin. He says, what kind of a coffin do you want? Well, she says, what are they wearing just now? Well, he says, for a lady, a young lady that's never been married before, we have a pure white coffin. And then for a lady that's been married, you know, well, for her we have a lavender coffin. Well, Mary says, make mine white with a couple splashes of lavender. You know, I'm not always out traveling around. When I'm not, I'm at home visiting some of my friends. Just the other night I went over to see an old friend of mine, old Cherry Hunstosh, that's his name, you know, and he's about 93. And he was telling me he went to see the doctor that day. And when he went down to the doctor, says, what can I do for you, Cherry? Well, he says, doctor, I got trouble. He says, what's your trouble? Well, all the time I want to chase girls. Doctor says, that's no trouble. Yes, he says, it is. He says, when I catch him, I don't know what I chased him for. I got a friend down there that's a tooth puller, too. They really call him a dentist at Sawrubber. That's what they call him in Dutch, Sawman. Anyhow, he told me he had a lady come in the other day. She had an awful toothache. Oh, this was killing her something wonderful. And she got in. Doc says, what's wrong? Well, she says, I want a tooth pulled, but she says, I'm so nervous and I'm so excited, I'm scared. She says, I'm awful scared. You know, she says, I believe I'll just as soon have a baby. Well, Harry says, make up your mind so I can adjust the chair. One of our other neighbors down there, Mrs. Martin, she has a young daughter that's just starting to go out with the fellas now. And Mom Martin was giving her some information. She says, now you're going to watch yourself when you go out with these fellas. They take you out to the carnival or the picnic, and then they buy you some popcorn and ice cream and soda pop, and then they want to go for a ride. And then they want to park somewhere, and then when they park, they want to put their head on your shoulder, and that's when I start to worry. So the next morning when she come home, she says, Mom, you were right. You were right, exactly. He took me to the carnival, and then he got me some popcorn and some soda and some ice cream, and then he says, let's go for a ride. And then we took a ride, and then he started to park, and he was just about ready to put his head on my shoulder. I says, hey, Nix, come around. Let me put my head on your shoulder. Let your mom worry.